Every city has its mysteries, but when dawn arrives and the rain doesn't stop, some stories cross the line into the inexplicable. A car that always appears in the same place, but no one knows who is inside. A silent passenger who gets into your car and disappears mid-trip. Barefoot prints inside a locked house, and the smile of someone who was never invited. 3 real stories that share something in common. The rain never stopped, and terror entered without asking permission. What happens when routine becomes a nightmare? When what seems like coincidence repeats itself night after night? What if something or someone is watching you right now outside the window? Before we understand these stories, we need to go back to where it all began, when the water started falling and didn't stop. But there was one thing. It rained heavily that week, almost every night. A fine, relentless rain that turned every corner into a soggy darkness. And it was on one of those early mornings that something started following me. Working late at night changes you. Not just your body, it changes your outlook, your thoughts, your instincts. The city loses its colors, its logic, its sound. And what's left is a cold, wet, and silently hostile landscape. I worked in a distribution warehouse. I left every day at 4 a.m. It wasn't a choice, it was what I had. The pay wasn't great, but it paid the rent. And back then, that alone was a blessing. At first, it was just an uneasy feeling, the kind you try to ignore. I'd get in the car, turn on the windshield wipers, and drive on. The streets were empty, the streetlights were flashing, and that damp silence filled everything around me. On the 3rd night of rain, I noticed a black car parked a little ways down my driveway. An old sedan, opaque, with tinted windows. It was turned off. No lights were on. I thought it was strange, but I kept going. The next day, he was there again. Same place, same silence. I thought, coincidence. But deep down, it no longer seemed like it. From then on, the car started appearing frequently, always around 4:30 a.m. Just before I arrived, I'd park, look at it, try to see if anyone was inside, but it was impossible. The windows were too dark, and the rain created a rippled effect on the surface. It looked like the car was made of liquid shadow. I began to suspect. I took photos. No clear skirt. The sign was dirty, almost illegible. I began to feel watched. Every time I entered the house, I got the impression that someone was still outside, waiting. And the worst part, this feeling only came on rainy nights. One night, the car appeared at a different point on the street, closer to my house. Headlights off, completely motionless. It was as if it wanted me to know it was there, but without revealing itself completely. A predator toying with its prey. That day, I couldn't sleep. I kept peeking through the crack in my bedroom window. And during a flash of lightning, I swear I saw a silhouette standing behind the car, motionless, soaking wet, staring at me. I woke up with a start. The TV was on. That startled me. I didn't remember turning it on. What's more, it was muted, displaying only a faint hiss. The remote wasn't in the living room. I found it in the hallway near my bedroom door. At this point, your mind goes into overdrive. You start to doubt your own sanity. You start to wonder if you're just tired, stressed, or if you're really someone came in there. The next day, I installed cameras, 2 outside, 1 inside, pointed at the living room. I wanted to protect myself, or at least prove to myself that I wasn't going crazy. More rain, more sleepless nights. Until one freezing dawn, I went for a walk, trying to ease the weight on my mind. The street was deserted, the raindrops falling like needles on the hood of my sweatshirt. When I returned, the black car was gone. For a second, I felt relief. But the door of my house was leaning against, not locked. Leaning, I panicked. I went straight to the computer and opened the camera files. There was a new video recorded while I was away. 2 minutes and 43 seconds of something indescribable. The living room camera captured a figure slowly passing behind the sofa. Short, hunched over, as if walking on all fours. Silent. Her skin was pale, almost gray, and her hair dripped wetly to the floor. She wasn't looking at the camera. I looked at the stairs. The stairs that led straight to my room. I stopped the video. My heart was pounding so loudly it felt like a drum in my ears. I called the police. I locked myself in the bathroom with a kitchen knife, listening to footsteps, slowly, coming from downstairs. But when they arrived, nothing was found. No sign of a break-in, no footprints, no trace. Only the recording, which the police watched in silence. One of them looked at me with a strange expression. He asked me, "You live alone, right?" I shook my head, unable to answer. Then why, in the recording, there is a cup of coffee being placed on the table before the figure appeared? I went to see, and it was true. 2 minutes before the creature appeared, someone appeared from behind, placed a cup on the table, and disappeared from the image. That destroyed me. That same night, I checked into a hotel. I returned home the next day with the police. We searched every corner, and it was in the attic that we found a wet quilt marked with mud and a notebook. A notebook with my schedules, my recorded conversations, even copies of photos of me sleeping. He or it was studying me. The investigation uncovered the car's owner, a man with a history of hospitalizations. He'd been missing for months. He lived 8 kilometers away, but no one had seen him since the rains began. The car was impounded. Inside, they found clothes, my clothes, and a rubber mask. Human, detailed. How did he do it? How many times did he come into my house? I'll never know. Today, I no longer work at night. I moved to another city. I changed everything, but it still rains. And on nights when the rain falls harder, I still wake up with the feeling that someone is watching me through the window. And I swear sometimes, in the middle of a storm, I see the reflection of a black car outside, waiting. It was in a rural area, almost outside the city limits. A place of farms, dirt roads, and tall grass. The kind of place I usually avoided at night, especially in the rain. But at that moment, desperation got the better of me. I accepted. The drive to the starting point took over 40 minutes. The rain seemed to intensify with every turn, and the windshield wipers were no longer able to see it. When I reached the crossroads indicated on the GPS, I slowed down. The place was completely isolated. No streetlights, just mud, trees, and darkness. I parked. My phone displayed. That night, I almost gave up on going out. The storm began before nightfall. One of those violent downpours, with thunder that shook windows and cut through the sky like razors. Almost no one left the house on a night like that, but I needed to make ends meet for the week. And being a ride-hailing driver, as you can imagine, doesn't always allow for luxuries. I got in the car, turned on the app, and went. The city looked different. The streets were deserted, flooded. No pedestrians, no life. Just the raindrops drumming on the car roof and lightning illuminating empty intersections like flashes from a divine camera. He'd been driving for almost an hour without a single ride when a notification finally appeared. Distant, much further away than normal. Passenger waiting. But I didn't see anyone. I stood there for almost 2 minutes, with my hazard lights on, watching in the rearview mirror, until someone appeared. He came out of the forest. A man, tall, thin, completely soaked. He wore a long coat that dripped with water. His face was in shadow, but what bothered me was the stare. Even from a distance, it felt like he was already staring at me before I even saw him. He got into the car without saying anything. He sat in the back in the passenger seat, but in the opposite corner, the darker side, it dripped silently, as if the body itself were made of rain. "Good evening," I said. No response. The app indicated the destination, a dead-end street on the other side of town, almost a 50-minute drive. I swallowed hard. "Let's go," I muttered. And I started driving. The first few minutes were just the sound of tires slicing through the accumulated water and the hum of the rain. I tried to make conversation. Nothing special, just the basics. "Heavy rain today, huh?" Silence. "Do you live around here?" Silence. Little by little, the discomfort turned into anxiety. He didn't touch his phone, didn't look out the window, didn't move at all. It was as if he were a living statue. Every now and then, I glanced in the rearview mirror. He was there, motionless, his face partially obscured by the soaked hood. That's when, without warning, he spoke. "Do you always work these hours?" The voice was wrong. I can't explain it. Low, but with a strange resonance, as if it echoed, as if it were coming from inside a well. I replied hesitantly, "Yes, sometimes." Silence again. I faced the road again. The headlights illuminated the curtain of water and the bushes that passed like shadows. The road was more deserted than ever. Suddenly, I felt my phone vibrate. An app notification. I glanced at it discreetly. "Your passenger canceled the ride." I stopped the car. "Did you cancel?" I asked, turning my head slightly. "Nothing. Sir, the ride has been canceled. The app is no longer tracking the trip, and I can't continue without confirmation." Silence. I turned around completely. The bench was empty. I froze. I looked around. No one. The passenger door was still locked, and the seat was dry. No watermarks. No sign that anyone had been there. But two saw him come in. I heard the door slam. The cell phone vibrated again. It was an unknown number. I answered. On the other end, a man's voice, tired, distressed. "Are you the driver who picked up the passenger on Estrada dos Ipes?" "Yes, what's going on?" "This man, he disappeared 2 weeks ago. His last recorded trip was to this exact spot. He never reached his destination. He was never seen again. And now, his car appears as the last vehicle to have been at that coordinate." The call dropped. I couldn't drive anymore. I drove home like a zombie. The rain kept falling, each drop like a drum beating on my nerves. During the drive, I glanced in the rearview mirror a few times, and I swear to God, at certain moments, I thought I saw something moving in the back seat. But every time I turned around, there was nothing. The next day, I went to the police station to give a statement. They showed me a photo of the missing person. It was him. The man who got into my car. The one who sat silently. The one who vanished halfway through the drive. They asked if I knew where he was going. I didn't know how to answer. But the destination the app registered was exactly 500 meters from an old, abandoned cemetery, in an area where, according to the police, no one has lived there for decades. Nowadays, I only drive during the day, but I still have the car. And sometimes, when it rains heavily, the back seat is wet in the morning, even if no one has walked there. It was late Sunday when it all began. I was returning from an exhausting shift. The sky was already overcast when I left the hospital, and before I reached the dirt road leading to my house, the rain began, heavy, dense, as if the entire sky were collapsing at once. My house is in a more isolated, almost rural area, surrounded by forest, pasture, and a few neighboring properties. The kind of place where the sound of the rain is so loud you can barely hear yourself think, and where, if something happens, no one is close enough to hear. As I turned into the driveway, with my headlights still shining on the mud, I noticed something strange. Tire tracks, not mine. I knew those by heart. They were different, deeper, cooler, and they went straight to the side of the house where there's no garage, where no one should go. I stood there for a few seconds, watching those soggy marks slowly wash away in the running water. My first thought was, delivery. Maybe someone got the wrong address, but there was no package, no notification on the phone, and no reason for anyone to park next to the house, especially there where the weeds are already starting to rise. I got out of the car, feeling my sneakers sink into the mud. The wind was icy, and the rain beat down hard on my hood. I took a quick lap around the house. Nothing. The front door was locked as I'd left it. Everything seemed in order, but the feeling that someone had been there wouldn't leave me. I walked in, took off my wet shoes, hung up my coat, and went straight to my room. My head was pounding, and all I wanted was a hot shower in bed. But as I was running the shower, something made me stop. The guest room window was ajar. It was a window I rarely used. In fact, it was always locked. And yet there it was, open, dripping water down the wall, leaving the carpet damp. I immediately locked it, trying to convince myself that perhaps I had left it that way myself, which was unlikely. But with sleep and rain, The mind makes concessions. I finished my shower, ate something light, and flopped down on the couch. The rain pounded hard on the roof, a constant, almost hypnotic sound. I turned on the TV and I don't remember falling asleep. All I know is that I woke up to a completely dark house. Nor energy. The clock read 3:12 in the morning. Everything was absolutely silent, except for the living room TV, which turned on by itself. The screen glowed in the darkness, displaying static. A faint hiss filled the room. I stood up, disoriented. I walked to the living room and turned off the television. On the way back, I tripped over something on the floor. It was the remote control, but he wasn't in the room. He was in front of my bedroom door. At that moment, my entire body went into overdrive. I began searching the house, room by room. Everything seemed in order. But then I noticed something even worse. Barefoot marks, wet, on the kitchen tile, as if someone had come in from the rain. Small, thin, almost childlike feet. They went up the stairs. I was shaking. I grabbed a flashlight, took a deep breath, and went upstairs. The hallway was dark. The lights wouldn't come back on. And then, at the end of the hallway, I saw the guest room door open. Inside, the carpet was even more soaked, and on it, more recent marks, as if someone had dragged under the bed. I approached slowly, each step heavier than the last. The sound of the rain seemed to have diminished outside. Everything grew quieter, as if the house were holding its breath along with me. I bent down with the flashlight. I aimed it under the bed. Nothing, but there was something there, a t-shirt. Mine, folded but wet, thrown into a corner I would never have used as a makeshift wardrobe. That was enough. I left the house, called the police, and waited outside in the rain. When they arrived, they searched everything. They found signs of a discreet break-in. The guest room window had been forced open from the outside with a thin blade. Someone had been there, maybe for hours, maybe for days, and they hadn't taken anything. The police were unable to explain. They said it was possible someone was just taking shelter from the rain. But that didn't explain the control in the hallway, the shifted clothes, or the barefoot prints. The most disturbing, the next day, the police officer in charge took me aside. "Do you have a security camera?" he asked. I replied that yes, but that only one was working, the one at the main entrance. He asked me to watch the recording from the night before, and there it was. At 2:37 in the morning, a figure appears on the porch, short, hunched over. He knocks lightly on the door, as if asking permission. He waits. Then, he simply walks to the side of the house, where the tire tracks were seen. The figure was a woman, but the face wasn't right. There was no expression. There was no movement. Just wide, dark eyes fixed on the camera, and a slight smile, as if he already knew that soon would be inside. To this day, I don't know who he was or what he wanted. Nothing was taken, nothing was left. But with every heavy rain, my house seems to shrink, and sometimes the remote still appears in places I didn't leave it. 3 stories, 3 victims, the same pattern. Constant rain, strange sensations, and presences that defy logic. A car parked where it shouldn't be, a passenger who may never have been human, and a smiling figure, outside, waiting for you to sleep. What did these entities want? How did they know where they lived? And the scariest thing, did any of them actually leave? If you've ever felt chills during a storm, it might not just be the cold. The rest of these and other even more disturbing stories are in the ebook that we left in the pinned comments. But be careful. Only read at night if you are sure that you are alone.